That's what I suspect, Damon agreed. But we need proof before we can act. Then we get proof, Arya said firmly. And then we make them answer for everything they've done. Return plans begin. 3 weeks after arriving in the north, Arya stood before a mirror and barely recognized herself. The skinny, timid servant girl was gone. In her place stood a Luna queen. Her training had added lean muscle to her frame. Her posture was straight and confident. Her green eyes held a steely determination. She wore leather armor fitted perfectly to her body, with the Northern Pack's symbol on one shoulder and her own royal blood symbol on the other. Damon entered without knocking. They had become comfortable with each other over the weeks, though he still maintained a respectful distance, letting their bond grow naturally. The council meeting is about to begin, he said. Are you ready? Arya turned to face him. I'm ready. They walked together to the council chamber, where Damon's most trusted advisors waited. As they entered, everyone stood and bowed to both of them. Be seated, Damon commanded. Once everyone sat, he continued. You all know by now that Luna Arya is not just my mate. She is the daughter of Alpha Alexander Winters, the rightful heir to the royal blood pact territories. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. We also have evidence, Damon continued, nodding to Elder Thomas. The old man stood and spread documents across the table. Through magical scrying and physical investigation, we've confirmed that Alpha Harrison of Moonstone Pack has been in continuous contact with Gregor Kane of the Shadow Pack. We have records of payments, of meetings, of shared strategies. Harrison didn't just fail to protect the Luna. He actively helped the ones who killed her parents. Arya stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. I want justice. For my parents. For 15 years of my life that were stolen. For every person who. The rejection knight. The servant's shadow. Arya Winters had learned long ago that silence was survival. In the Moonstone Pack, she was nothing more than a ghost who scrubbed floors and served meals. 20 years old, yet treated like she was invisible. Her small room in the basement of the pack house was cold and damp, but it was hers. The only space where she could breathe without someone yelling at her. Tonight was different, though. Tonight was the annual mating ball, and her wolf was restless inside her. Arya had felt it all week. A strange pulling sensation in her chest, like something important was about to happen. Her wolf, Luna, kept whispering one word over and over. Tonight. Stop giving me false hope, Arya whispered to herself as she stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Her long black hair hung in simple waves down her back. Her green eyes looked tired from years of hard work. She wore the same gray dress she always wore. Plain, shapeless, forgettable. Arya. Get up here now. The sharp voice of Beta Marcus echoed down the stairs. Arya flinched and quickly climbed the wooden steps to the main hall. The pack house had been transformed into something magical. Golden lights hung from every corner. Tables were covered with expensive food. Flowers decorated every surface. Wolves from neighboring packs had arrived in their finest clothes, laughing and drinking. And Arya? She was handed a tray of champagne glasses. Serve the guests. Beta Marcus ordered without looking at her. Stay quiet. Stay out of sight. And for Goddess' sake, don't embarrass us. Arya nodded and melted into the background, just as she had been trained to do. The mating ball begins. The grand hall buzzed with excitement. Young wolves stood nervously, waiting to discover their fated mates. The mating bond was sacred, a gift from the moon goddess herself. When two wolves were destined for each other, they would feel at the moment they were close enough. A pull, a scent, an undeniable connection. Arya moved through the crowd like a shadow, offering drinks and clearing plates. Nobody noticed her. Nobody ever did. Ladies and gentlemen, Alpha Harrison's voice boomed across the hall. He stood on the raised platform at the front, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Beside him stood his son, Derek. Arya's heart skipped a beat. Derek Harrison was everything an Alpha's son should be. Tall, muscular, with golden hair and blue eyes that seemed to shine. He was the pack's pride, destined to become Alpha when his father stepped down. Every unmated she-wolf in the room was staring at him with hungry eyes. Arya had never dared to look at him for too long. People like Derek didn't notice people like her. Tonight, we celebrate the sacred bonds that the moon goddess creates. Alpha Harrison continued. May those who are destined find each other under her light. The crowd cheered. Music began to play. Wolves started mingling, searching for that special scent, that magical pull. Arya turned to head back to the kitchen when it hit her. A scent so powerful it nearly knocked her off her feet. Pine trees and morning rain. Wild and clean and absolutely intoxicating. Her wolf, Luna, went crazy inside her mind. Mate, mate, mate. Luna howled with joy. Arya's eyes widened. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Slowly, she turned toward the source of the scent. No, 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 no. Derek Harrison stood across the room, his head turning slowly, his nose in the air. He was searching for the scent too. His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on her. Their eyes met. Time stopped. The cruel betrayal. Arya saw the exact moment recognition hit Derek. His eyes widened. His body went rigid. She watched him breathe in deeply, confirming what his wolf was telling him. For one beautiful, foolish second, Arya thought maybe, just maybe, this was her chance. Her chance to finally belong. To finally be wanted. To finally be loved. Derek's face twisted in disgust. He crossed the room in long, aggressive strides. Arya's wolf was singing with joy, urging her to run to him, to embrace him. But Arya's human mind saw the anger in his eyes. You? Derek hissed when he reached her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. You're my mate. I didn't know. Arya whispered, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped her tray. This is a joke, Derek spat. He looked around frantically, as if searching for hidden cameras. The moon goddess has made a mistake. Those words stabbed through Arya's heart like silver knives. Derek, please. Don't. He held up a hand, his lip curling. Don't say my name like you have the right. People were starting to notice. Conversations quieted. Heads turned. Arya felt dozens of eyes on her, and she wanted to disappear into the floor. Is there a problem, son? Alpha Harrison approached, his thick eyebrows drawn together. Derek laughed bitterly. Oh, there's a problem, all right. Apparently, the servant girl is my fated mate. Gasps echoed through the hall. Then came the whispers. The servant? That can't be right. She doesn't even have a wolf, does she? I do have a wolf, Arya said quietly, finding a tiny spark of courage. And the bond. You feel it too, Derek. I know you do. What I feel, Derek said loudly, making sure everyone could hear, is insulted. The future alpha of Moonstone Pack cannot have a nobody as a mate. I need a Luna who is strong, beautiful, and worthy of standing beside me. Each word was a blade cutting deeper. You are worthy. Arya's wolf, Luna, whispered desperately. Tell him. Fight for us. But Arya had never fought for anything in her life. She had only ever survived. Derek, maybe you should take a moment, Beta Marcus suggested, though even he looked uncomfortable. The mate bond is sacred. Sacred? Derek interrupted. What's sacred about being tied to someone who scrubs toilets for a living? Cruel laughter rippled through some of the younger wolves. Arya's eyes burned with unshed tears. She would not cry. She would not give them the satisfaction. Derek stepped closer, his eyes cold and hard. I, Derek Harrison, future alpha of Moonstone Pack, reject you, Arya Winters, as my mate. The pain was instant and excruciating. Arya gasped, clutching her chest as the half-formed mate bond shattered like glass. It felt like her heart was being ripped out. She fell to her knees, unable to breathe. Complete the rejection. Alpha Harrison ordered her, his voice flat. Say the words. Arya could barely see through her tears. Her wolf was howling in agony inside her mind. But she knew she had no choice. Holding onto a bond that wasn't wanted would only cause more pain. I accept your rejection, Arya choked out. The bond broke completely. The pain was so intense that Arya's vision went white. She heard someone laugh. She heard someone say, good riddance. And then she heard nothing but the sound of her own broken heart. The stranger's arrival. Arya didn't know how long she knelt there on the cold floor. Time felt meaningless. The party continued around her as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just been destroyed in front of everyone. Get her out of here, she heard Alpha Harrison mutter. She's ruining the mood. Strong hands grabbed her arms, hauling her to her feet. Two guards began dragging her toward the exit. Arya didn't resist. What was the point? They were halfway to the door when it exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The heavy oak doors blasted off their hinges, slamming into the walls with a thunderous crash. Everyone in the hall screamed and dropped to the floor, shielding their heads from flying debris. When Arya looked up, she saw him. A man stood in the doorway, backlit by moonlight, looking like a dark god who had stepped out of legend. He was massive, at least 6.5 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a presence that made the air itself feel heavy. His hair was black as midnight, falling to his shoulders. His eyes, goddess, his eyes were silver. Pure, molten silver that seemed to glow in the dim light. He wore all black, a long coat, boots, and beneath it, what looked like tactical gear. This was not a man who came in peace. "Who dares?" Alpha Harrison began, but his voice died in his throat. The stranger's power hit the room like a tidal wave. It was suffocating, primal, and absolutely terrifying. Wolves throughout the hall whimpered and bowed their heads in submission without even meaning to. Even Alpha Harrison took a step back. "Alpha Damon Steele," someone whispered in terror. "The Northern King." Arya had heard stories about the North. It was a wild, brutal territory ruled by the strongest Alpha in existence. Alpha Damon Steele was a legend, a warrior who had united the fractured Northern packs through strength and fear. They said he was merciless. They said he had never lost a fight. They said he didn't believe in mercy, and he was walking straight toward her. The guards holding Arya immediately released her and scrambled backward. Arya swayed on her feet, still weak from the rejected bond. She tried to move, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Alpha Damon crossed the hall in seconds. He stopped directly in front of her, towering over her small frame. His silver eyes scanned her face, taking in every detail, her tear-stained cheeks, her trembling lips, the pain in her eyes. Then he breathed in deeply. His eyes flashed with something wild and possessive. "Mine," he growled, the single word echoing through the silent hall. The unexpected claim. Arya's mind went blank. She must have hit her head when she fell. She was hallucinating. There was no other explanation. "I what?" she whispered. Damon's hard expression softened slightly. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she didn't move, he gently cupped her face with one large hand. His touch was surprisingly warm. "You are my mate," Damon said, his voice deep and certain. "I've been searching for you for 5 years." "That's impossible." Derek's voice cut through the moment. He pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger and something else. Jealousy? "She was my mate. I just rejected her. The bond is broken." Damon's head turned slowly toward Derek. The look in his eyes made Derek stop dead in his tracks. "You rejected her?" Damon asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "She's not worthy of an alpha," Derek said, but he sounded less confident now. "She's weak. She has no title, no family, nothing to offer. She is mine," Damon snarled, and the force of his alpha command dropped Derek to his knees. "And you rejected her because she didn't meet your shallow standards?" Damon looked back at Arya, his expression gentling again. "Did he hurt you?" Arya didn't know what to say. Her chest still ached from the broken bond. Her mind was spinning. Why was the Northern King here? How could she be his mate if she'd just been Derek's mate? "The first bond was false," Damon explained, as if reading her thoughts. "Sometimes the goddess tests us with false bonds to lead us to our true mates. Your real mate is me. I can feel it. Can't you?" Arya realized she could. Beneath the pain of rejection, there was something else, a warmth spreading through her chest. A different pull, stronger than what she'd felt with Derek. It was like coming home after being lost in the cold. "I feel it," she whispered. Damon smiled, and it transformed his harsh face into something beautiful. "Good." He turned to address the room, his arm moving protectively around Arya's waist. "I am Alpha Damon Steele, King of the Northern Territories. This woman is my fated mate, and therefore your Luna Queen. Anyone who has harmed her, insulted her, or treated her as anything less than royalty has insulted me." The threat hung heavy in the air. Alpha Harrison stepped forward carefully. "Alpha Damon, we had no idea." "Ignorance is not an excuse," Damon cut him off. "She lived among you for years, and you treated her like garbage. That speaks to the character of this pack." He looked down at Arya. "Do you have belongings you need to collect?" Arya thought of her small room, her few worn clothes, the single photograph she had of parents she barely remembered. "Just one thing," she said quietly. "Then get it," Damon said gently. We leave tonight." As Arya hurried toward the basement stairs, she heard Damon's voice one more time, cold and commanding. "Derek Harrison, you rejected a gift from the moon goddess because of pride and prejudice. You will live with that regret for the rest of your life. And know this, if you or anyone from this pack ever approaches my mate again, I will consider it an act of war." Arya grabbed her small bag and the photograph of her parents. When she returned to the hall, Damon was waiting. He took her bag from her and offered his arm. "Ready?" he asked. Arya looked back at the Moonstone pack one last time. At Derek, who looked pale and sick. At Alpha Harrison, who looked afraid. At all the faces of people who had ignored her, belittled her, and treated her like she was worthless. She looked up at Damon, at the man who had crossed territories to find her, who called her his mate with pride in his voice. "I'm ready," she said. And as they walked out into the night together, Arya felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life was about to change forever. Behind them, the Moonstone pack stood in shocked silence, realizing too late that they had thrown away something precious. And the servant girl they had dismissed was now the most powerful Luna in the north. The real story was only just beginning. Part 2, The Queen's Awakening. Journey to the North. The journey to the Northern Territories was unlike anything Arya had ever experienced. Damon's convoy consisted of 3 black SUVs, each carrying elite warriors who moved with deadly precision. Arya sat in the middle vehicle beside Damon, her small bag clutched on her lap, still trying to process everything that had happened. "You're quiet," Damon observed, his deep voice breaking the silence. He hadn't let go of her hand since they left Moonstone Pack. "I'm trying to understand," Arya admitted, looking out at the dark forest passing by. "A few hours ago, I was serving drinks. Now I'm supposedly a Luna Queen. It doesn't feel real." Damon squeezed her hand gently. "It's real, and I know this is overwhelming. You've been through trauma tonight, the rejection, the pain. But I need you to know something important." Arya turned to look at him. His silver eyes seemed to glow in the darkness of the car. "Derek Harrison was a fool," Damon said firmly. "But his rejection was the moon goddess's way of freeing you for your true destiny. You were never meant to be his. You were always meant to be mine." "Why me?" Arya whispered. "I'm nobody. I have no family, no power, no—" "Stop," Damon interrupted, his voice gentle but commanding. "I don't want to hear you talk about yourself that way. You are my mate. That makes you somebody. That makes you powerful. That makes you everything." Arya felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of hope, of relief, of feeling wanted for the first time in her life. "Tell me about yourself," Damon requested, settling back in his seat, but keeping her hand in his. "I want to know everything about the woman the goddess chose for me." So Arya talked. She told him about her earliest memories, vague images of a warm house and loving voices. She told him about waking up in Moonstone Pack's orphanage at age 5 with no memory of how she got there. She told him about growing up as the pack's servant, about the loneliness, about learning to make herself invisible. Damon listened to every word, his jaw tightening with each story of mistreatment. "They will answer for what they did to you," he said quietly. "But first, we focus on you, on healing you, on showing you who you really are." "Who I really am?" Arya asked, confused. Damon smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." They drove through the night, leaving the familiar territories behind and entering the wild, untamed lands of the north. The trees grew taller here, the mountains sharper, the air colder and cleaner. As dawn broke, Arya saw it, the northern palace. It wasn't like the pack houses she knew. This was a fortress carved into the mountainside itself, made of dark stone and steel, with towers reaching toward the sky. It looked both beautiful and terrifying, like its owner. "Welcome home, Luna," Damon said softly. Arrival at the northern palace. As their convoy pulled through the massive iron gates, Arya saw hundreds of wolves lined up along the driveway. Warriors, servants, advisors, all standing at attention. Her first instinct was to shrink back, to hide. "No hiding," Damon said, reading her thoughts. "You are there, Luna. They need to see you." When the car stopped, Damon stepped out first and then offered his hand to Arya. She took it, her legs shaking as she emerged. The morning sun hit her face, and she heard the collective intake of breath from the assembled crowd. Mountains. There was a sitting area with a fireplace, a massive bathroom with a tub that could fit 5 people, and a walk-in closet already filled with beautiful clothes. This is all for me. Arya breathed. Vera smiled warmly. This is yours, Luna. Everything in this palace is yours. You are home now. Home. The word felt foreign and wonderful at the same time. I've drawn you a bath, Vera continued. Take your time. There are fresh clothes laid out. When you're ready, I'll have food brought up. The Alpha has instructed us to give you anything you need or want. After Vera left, Arya stood in the middle of the room, overwhelmed. She walked to the window and looked out at the vast northern lands. Somewhere out there was Moonstone Pack, where Derek was probably still reeling from what had happened. Part of her felt guilty for feeling happy about that, but a larger part of her felt vindicated. He had rejected her, humiliated her, thrown her away like garbage. And now she was a queen, and he was just a bitter alpha son who had made the biggest mistake of his life. Karma, her wolf, Luna, purred with satisfaction. Hidden powers revealed. Arya spent the day recovering. She bathed, ate the most delicious food she'd ever tasted, and tried on the beautiful clothes in her closet. Everything fit perfectly, as if they'd been made specifically for her measurements. As evening approached, there was a knock on her door. Arya opened it to find Daemon standing there, changed out of his tactical gear into simple black pants and a dark gray shirt that emphasized his muscular frame. "May I come in?" he asked politely. "It's your palace," Arya said, stepping aside. "It's our palace," Daemon corrected, entering. "And I would never enter your private space without permission. You are my mate, not my possession." The distinction made Arya's heart warm. Derek had never asked permission for anything. He had simply taken what he wanted. Daemon gestured to the sitting area by the fireplace. They sat across from each other, and Arya noticed he was carrying a leather-bound book. "There's something I need to tell you," Daemon began, his expression serious. "Something about who you really are." Arya felt a flutter of nervousness. "What do you mean? You said you don't remember anything before age 5. That you woke up in Moonstone Pack's orphanage with no memories." "Yes," Arya confirmed. "They told me I was found wandering in the forest. They said my parents probably abandoned me because I was weak." Daemon's eyes flashed with anger. "They lied to you. Your parents didn't abandon you, Arya. They died protecting you." The words hit Arya like a physical blow. "What?" Daemon opened the leather book, revealing old photographs and documents. "For the past 5 years, I've been searching for you based on a vision the moon goddess gave me. She showed me my mate's face and told me she was hidden, protected by powerful magic. I searched every pack, every territory. And then, 2 months ago, I found this." He handed Arya a photograph. It showed a beautiful woman with long black hair and green eyes holding a baby. Standing beside her was a tall, powerful-looking man with kind eyes. "That's you as a baby," Daemon said softly. "And those are your parents, Alexander and Catherine Winters." Arya's hands trembled as she stared at the photo. She saw herself in both of them. Her mother's eyes, her father's chin. "Who were they?" she whispered. "Your father was Alexander Winters, the alpha of the royal blood pack. Your mother was Catherine, a powerful witch who gave up her magic to be with him. Together, they ruled one of the strongest packs in history." Arya's mind reeled. "Royal blood pack? I've never heard of it." "Because it was destroyed 15 years ago," Daemon said grimly. "Betrayed and slaughtered by a rival pack who wanted their territory and power. Your parents knew the attack was coming. Your mother used the last of her magic to place a powerful spell on you. A spell to hide your scent, suppress your power, and erase your memories. Then they sent you away to safety. Moonstone Pack," Arya realized. "They took me in because your father had an alliance with Alpha Harrison," Daemon confirmed. "Harrison was supposed to protect you, keep you safe until you were old enough to understand your heritage. But instead, he saw an opportunity. A powerless child with no memory, no protection. He could use you as free labor, and no one would know." Rage filled Arya's chest. "He knew who I was the whole time? He knew about my parents, about what happened, and he made me a servant." "Worse," Daemon said, his voice hard. "He actively suppressed your wolf. That's why you felt weak all these years. That's why you thought you barely had a wolf. Your power has been locked away by dark magic. Magic Harrison paid for to keep you weak and controllable. Arya stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Everything she thought she knew about herself was a lie. She wasn't weak. She wasn't worthless. She was the daughter of an alpha and a witch. She had royal blood. Why didn't the spell break when I turned 18? She asked. Most magic fades then. Because Harrison renewed it every year, Damon explained, standing to join her. There's a witch in his employ, hidden from sight. She's been maintaining the spell to keep you suppressed. And Derek? Arya turned to face him. Did he know? No, Damon said. Derek is an arrogant fool, but he's not part of his father's schemes. Harrison kept your identity secret from everyone. But Derek's rejection actually helped us. How? The pain of rejection, the breaking of a false bond. It cracked the suppression spell. That's how I was able to sense you last night. Your true scent finally leaked through. That's why I came immediately. Arya's mind was spinning with revelations. So what now? What am I supposed to do with this information? Damon gently took her hands. Now, we break the spell completely. Now, we awaken your true power. And then, if you want it, we make them all pay for what they did to you. Training and transformation. The next morning, Arya stood in the palace's training courtyard wearing flexible leather clothing that allowed for movement. Damon stood across from her, along with Vera and an elderly man introduced as Elder Thomas, the pack's most powerful magic user. Breaking a suppression spell isn't easy, Thomas explained, his wise old eyes studying Arya carefully. It requires the subject to confront their deepest pain and push past it. Your power has been caged for 15 years. Setting it free will hurt. I'm used to pain, Arya said quietly. Damon stepped forward, his expression gentle but firm. This is different. This will make the rejection pain feel like a paper cut. Are you sure you want to do this? We can wait. Give you time to adjust. No, Arya interrupted. I've waited long enough. I've been weak long enough. I want to know who I really am. Elder Thomas nodded approvingly. Then let's begin. He instructed Arya to sit in the center of a circle of stones he'd arranged. Damon stood just outside the circle, close enough to help if needed, but far enough not to interfere with the magic. Close your eyes, Thomas instructed. Find your wolf. Call to her. Arya closed her eyes and reached inward to where Luna, her wolf, usually resided as a small, quiet presence. But as she searched deeper, she felt something else. A massive door made of dark energy, chains wrapped around it, locks glowing with malevolent magic. I see it, Arya whispered. The spell. It's like a prison. Good, Thomas said. Now, your wolf needs to break through. But she can't do it alone. You need to help her. You need to remember everything you've buried. The pain, the loneliness, the injustice. Use it as fuel. Arya didn't want to remember. She had spent years trying to forget. But she understood what needed to be done. She thought about the years of scrubbing floors until her hands bled. She thought about eating leftovers while others feasted. She thought about the names they called her, worthless, ugly, burden. She thought about Derek's face when he rejected her, the disgust in his eyes. The anger built inside her like a wildfire. Luna, Arya called to her wolf. Help me. We're breaking free. Together. Her wolf responded with a howl that shook Arya's soul. Together, they charged at the door in her mind. The impact sent shockwaves through Arya's body. She gasped in pain, but she didn't stop. Again and again, they slammed against the barrier. That's it, Thomas encouraged. Keep going. The chains began to crack. The locks started to shatter. And then, with one final, desperate push, the door exploded. Power rushed through Arya like a tidal wave. Her eyes snapped open, and they were no longer just green. They were glowing with golden light. Her body lifted off the ground as energy poured out of her in waves. The stones around her circle cracked and exploded into dust. Damon, catch her, Thomas shouted. But before Damon could move, Arya's body began to shift. Not just shift, transform. Her bones cracked and reformed. Her muscles expanded. And then, where a small woman had been sitting, there now stood a wolf. But not just any wolf. Arya's wolf was massive, nearly as large as Damon's own alpha form. Her fur was pure white, gleaming like fresh snow in sunlight. Her eyes were bright gold, and around her neck, visible even in wolf form, was a mark, the ancient symbol of the royal blood pack. By the goddess, Vera breathed. She's a true alpha. Damon stared in awe. Not just a true alpha. She's the last royal blood, the rightful heir to one of the most powerful bloodlines in history. Arya's wolf looked at her paws, then at her body, feeling the power coursing through her veins. For the first time in her life, she felt strong. She felt complete. She felt like herself. Slowly, she shifted back to human form. Damon immediately wrapped a blanket around her as she swayed on her feet, exhausted but exhilarated. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. Arya looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. But they were tears of joy, of relief, of freedom. "I feel alive," she whispered. "For the first time in my life, I feel truly alive." The past uncovered. Over the next 2 weeks, Arya trained relentlessly. Damon personally oversaw her combat training, teaching her to fight in both human and wolf form. Vera taught her pack politics and how to carry herself as a Luna. Elder Thomas helped her understand and control her newly awakened powers. But the most important lessons came in the evening when Damon would tell her about her parents and the royal blood pack. "Your father was legendary," Damon said one night as they sat by the fire in her suite. They had fallen into a comfortable routine of spending evenings together, talking and getting to know each other. Alexander Winters was the kind of alpha other alphas aspired to be. Strong but fair, powerful but kind. He believed in justice, in protecting the weak, in using strength to serve rather than to dominate. "And my mother?" Arya asked, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea. Damon smiled. "Catherine was a force of nature, the last of an ancient line of witches. She gave up her immortality to be with your father, to have you. That's how powerful their love was." "How did they die?" Arya asked the question she'd been afraid to voice. Damon's expression darkened. "They were betrayed. Your father had a beta, a man named Marcus Steele, no relation to me. Marcus was ambitious. He wanted power he hadn't earned. He made a deal with a rival alpha, Gregor Kane of the Shadow Pack. Together, they planned an attack. But my father was strong," Arya said. "How did they defeat him?" "Poison," Damon said bitterly. "Marcus poisoned your father's food at a feast. Not enough to kill him, but enough to weaken him. When the Shadow Pack attacked, your father fought anyway. He killed dozens of them, even weakened. Your mother used her magic to hold them off, while the pack members escaped. But in the end, there were too many." Arya's throat tightened with grief for parents she couldn't remember. "Your mother's last act was to save you," Damon continued gently. "She used a spell that should have killed her instantly, but she held on long enough to send you to safety and make sure the spell around you was unbreakable. She died protecting you. And Alpha Harrison knew all of this." Arya asked, anger heating her voice. "Yes," Damon confirmed. "Your father and Harrison were allies. Harrison promised to guard you, to raise you as his own until you were old enough to claim your birthright. Instead, he saw an opportunity. With you powerless and forgotten, no one would challenge him. He kept you as a servant, renewed the spell to keep you weak, and made sure you never learned the truth." "What happened to Marcus and Gregor?" Arya demanded. "The ones who killed my parents?" Damon's smile was cold and sharp. "Marcus was killed by loyalists from your father's pack 3 years after the attack. But Gregor Kane is still alive. He claimed your family's territory and built his shadow pack into a formidable force using your father's lands and resources." Arya stood, her fists clenched. "Where is he now?" "His territory borders Moonstone Pack," Damon said. "In fact, Harrison and Gregor have an alliance. Harrison supplies Gregor with information and resources. In exchange, Gregor protects Harrison from challenges." The pieces fell into place in Arya's mind. They've been working together this whole time. Harrison knew what Gregor did. He might have even helped plan it.